Okay, so let me create a new file called as loops.js. What kind of loops available with you? Okay, see now, for let I is equals to 0, I is less than 100, and you can say I plus plus. All the variations of the for are as it is available dot log, and you can say value of I, value of I is, you can say dollar I, right? One version of for we have seen. Now if you run the code here, node loops.js, can you see? You would be getting typical output. Value of this is something like this. While loop is also available, while, right? And here you can define let cnt is equals to 0 and while you can say cnt is greater than, less than 100, right? cnt plus plus, right? Operator, this is, we have used increment operator, right? Or straight away write a console.log post increment operator, and I can say counter is dollar, and here you can say plus plus cnt, pre-increment we did. There are two types of increments, pre-increment and the post increment, right? Let's try to execute this code, clear out the console. See, you reach to the counter, right? From this to this, simple, right? Even do while is available, right? That's as it is, while, related to while. In the while what happens, first condition is going to be checked, but there are some situations, first iteration need to be there and then condition. In such cases you are going to use do while, right? But that can be done by means of while true, odd loop also, right? Fine. Now another, I have one array mobs is equals to, right? You can say array, I'm defining the array. How to define array? Something like this. You can define the arrays something like this, and into the mobs dot, what you can say, push Android, right? I'm going to say Apple, right? Then I'm going to say baby. Then you can have, what you can say, palm, like this. Some mostly used phones I have written over here. Now I want to iterate over this array. I would like to iterate over this array. Remember that push is a function that will help you to push some data on the array, right? So this is a one way. This is a dynamic array typically, right? You can have static array as well. You can have let, what you can say, numbers is equals to an array of 10, 12, 56, 89, 75, you can say 50, 52, 20, like this. This is static array. This is what? Dynamic array. Static and the dynamic. Now if you want to iterate over this, how do you iterate? For. How do you iterate? For let I is equals to 0, I is less than nums dot length and I plus plus, like this, right? And after that, what you would be doing, console dot log and what, console dot log and what, and you can say number is $I. Please don't write the code, never write the code. I'm going to push all the codes to this repository. All the codes would be available here, right? Your codes, you can check this code anytime. You don't need to worry about the code. See, I'll show you. You can say, just for your understanding, I'm telling you all the codes are going to come on this repository. I would be pushing the code. You can say JS fundamentals or say JS brush up. JS brush up would be commit, say OK, and then you can say push. Okay, so you will find all the codes over here. You will get all the recordings after the session, right? See this. So all code is with you. On the mobile, you can check it anytime. If you are working somewhere, you can check at the same time. So we are working with the loops. This is what I have printed. So you will get all these things. You don't need to worry about this. Okay. Now this is the loops, ES6, and some looping, or you can say iterating over the loops like this. You need to know this is a brush up. What's that? This is a brush up, remember that, not in detail sessions. All these are related to brush ups, right? So loops and arrays. So name would be loops and arrays.js. So we have seen little bit arrays, we have seen little bit loops, right? Then what I would like to show is that objects, JavaScript objects. Now see, objects.js, only objects we are going to see. Now you can define the object in the JS, right? Something like this. Let, you can say CLS, or you can say car is equals to curly braces. I am saying what? Curly braces. So this object contains key value pairs, key value, key value, key value. Now if you can say key, that key would be something like this, and you can say car brand, right? You can say Audi here, right? Color, you can say red, right? You can say price, you can say 7 million, something like this. Even you can have some functions also, right? Or you can say calc insurance, is a key, and to that key you can pass the lambda. Lambda is nothing but what? The function console.log calc ing. You remember that this is a function, representation is different. This is a function, right? Representation is different. This is a lambda kind of thing, right? So here you can do console.log, right? So I can say brand is $. Here you can say car.brand. color is dollar, what you can say, car dot color, right? Price is dollar car dot price, and you can call that function anytime car dot calc insurance, something like this. Object you have created in the JS. Remember that this is nothing but the object is. You can create an object in the JS in another way also. There are different approaches. This is a literal notation. Object literal notation is this. This is nothing but what? Object literal notation. Right. So console.log, you have called this and something like this. Object, we have created nothing but what? Object is. Right. Now, what you can say, another thing about this is classes and the objects. Classes, how do you define the class in the JavaScript? Right. Before going to that topic, I would like to cover something called as, what you can say, functional programming. Very important aspect of the JavaScript that you should know if you want to learn the Angular is a functional programming. So what I'll do, let me create the new file and you can say functional programming .js, functional programming .js. Now, what exactly functional programming means? If your programming language supports these three things, see, if this is a variable, let fn1 is equals to fn1 is equals to one function. I am assigning the function to the variables. Your programming language is functional in nature, right? If functions are assigned to the variable, programming language is functional in nature. Second thing, if functions can be passed as a parameter, see, fn param is another function, and to that function I am passing one more function as parameter, right? I can say cbfn, callback function. Now see, in the JavaScript there are no types. You don't need to worry about what types. JavaScript is untyped programming language. But the programming languages like statically typed one is nothing but TypeScript, which would be having some type here, right? But presently there is a no type. You have given just variable over here, cbfn. So fn param is accepting one parameter called as cbfn, right? So second thing, so I'll write functions can be assigned to the variables achieved. Functions can be passed as parameter. And third thing, functions can be returned as another function from the another function. See, return another function. One function can be assigned to the variable, function can be passed as parameter, and then function can be returned as another function. Now here you can say functions can be returned from another function. If your programming language does these three things, your programming language is functional in the nature. Now see, if you are assigning one function to the variable, what's the role of this variable? This variable is the holding that type of memory which is nothing but what the function is. This function is holding the memory of the function. Sorry, this variable is holding the memory of the function. So this variable can be used for function invocation. Here you can say invocation. Here you have invoked this function. Remember that. Which function you have invoked by means of this variable? This function. So I can write this like this. Now you have passed one function as parameter to this function. Means whenever you are going to call this function, you need to pass this function. Also, see how fn param, and here I need to pass what? Function. See, function has been passed as parameter. And where you are going to call this much function, you can call this much. Remember that this would be this scenario. This is fn1 is variable which is holding the function. cbfn is a variable which is holding reference to this function. Means you need to use this variable to invoke this function. How? You can say cbfn. cbfn. When you call cbfn, this function would be getting invoked. Are you getting it or not? So in the functional programming, functions can be passed as parameter. So here whenever you call this function, you need to pass this function, right? Which means that this is a variable which is pointing to this function. Means you can use this variable to call this function, like this analogy. Okay, now one function is returning another function. One function is returning another function. Now see, let fn outer is equals to, right, or sorry, function inner is equals to fnrt. Now what is the return type of fnrt? fnrt is going to return this function. Again, this is returning what? One function that has been holding inside one variable. Means if you want to invoke this function, you need to use this variable, right? Now this fnrt is pointing to one function which is nothing but this, because you have called this function over here. What is the return type of this function? Return type of this function is this function. What I'm saying? Return type of this function is nothing but what? This function. Means whenever you invoke this function, you will immediately get this function. You have stored this function into fn inner, right? And if you want to invoke this function, you need to use variable fn inner. So this line will invoke this function. Functional programming. Functional programming. Very important aspect. While you can use the lambdas also. How do you define the lambdas, right? So this line can be written something, this fn1 is equals to the lambda, something like this, empty one, right? Still you can call fn1, not an issue. Same variable I am using, rather you can create a separate variable, let fn1 lmd, and here you can say fn1 lmd lambda. Okay, same here you can pass lambda also, fn prm, and over here you can pass what, lambda. It's a function representation, this lambda. So these two lines are exactly equal, right? There is no difference in these two lines, right? Then you can say, instead of returning, you can write this function in this manner, function fn rt lmd lambda would be returning the lambda like this. So these two functions are exactly equal, these two, just representation is different. So this is represented in the traditional functions, this is represented in what, lambda functions, right? Even these two lines can be combined to one line. You can say fn rt, right? This is the first function call and this is a second function call immediately. So this one is going to return you one function, so this much is going to return you what, this function, and immediately you invoked over there. So these two lines is equals to this one line. Some advancements, functional programming. Okay, so please go through this much code, I'll push immediately.